Why does my client keep looking at me that way? Find out on today's episode. Hey, welcome to the podcast. This is your host, Matt Lawson, and I'm going to try a little something different today just to see how it's received. This is going to be a bit of a longer format podcast, and I hope it is something that you can get as much out of as the shorter formats. Today, we're going to focus on transference and countertransference. I have touched on this a little bit in a previous episode, these concepts, but I thought I'd go back and talk about them a bit more because I think it's really easy to get these two concepts confused and mixed up, and I'm hoping to really shed some light and make it something that it is easily understood for the test. Like many concepts in psychology, we have psychoanalysts and Sigmund Freud to thank for first noting this phenomena in the therapeutic environment. He actually initially thought both transference and countertransference worked against the therapeutic experience, worked against the individual coming around uh, to to benefiting them. He eventually came around to see the benefits of both transference and countertransference to uncover things in a person's life that may be repressed, and help them to resolve these repressed thoughts or feelings or experiences. Transference is a phenomena where feelings, desires, expectations of the patient originally directed towards significant figures in their early life are unconsciously redirected or transferred onto their therapist. Freud recognized that this can manifest in a bunch of different ways, including love, hatred, issues with authority or dependency, feelings toward the therapist. This is something that in practice you're constantly kind of checking for, at a subconscious level. I think, definitely at this point in my career, it's something that I see a lot of the times, or something something I always wonder about when I notice a shift in the way a person is talking to me. I've definitely been in situations where all of a sudden I felt like this parent that was working with this person that was in front of me, or some authority figure, especially when there is a significant age difference between me and the person that I'm working with. If I'm older and they're significantly younger, there's a sense I often get that this person is placing me in a very similar category as other parental slash authority figures in their lives. It makes sense if you think about it. Um, just as human beings, I think that we're really good at compartmentalizing things and compartmentalizing people just for ease of use. And our brains, our emotions, our thoughts can easily put somebody in the same category as other people in our lives in the way we relate to them. And it is something you have to be very careful of. And it's actually makes for a really good session just around questioning people like, hey, is this happening? How do you see me? Things like that. On the other hand, countertransference tends to be coming from the therapist and is put on the person that they're working with. So the therapist's own emotions, their own feelings, their own thoughts end up being transferred on to the person that they're working with. And again, like I said, Freud thought this was a negative thing, but later came to see it as something that he might be able to use to facilitate the therapeutic experience. Basically, however, we're just not immune as therapists to these very human ways of thinking and feeling about people. And we too can oftentimes just categorize them in our brains for ease of use. And it's something that we have to be aware of and constantly check in about. But neither of these phenomena, neither of these concepts have to necessarily be negative or positive. It can be very therapeutic to really lean into both transference and countertransference, just depending on how you're using them and how you're looking at them. So it's not kind of an either or something that you need to battle against in the therapeutic environment. It's something that can be embraced and considered and used for both good, but also does need to be kept in check to make sure it's not working against the experience that you're giving the individual. Let's consider some examples of this and how it might show up in a therapeutic environment. First, looking at transference, think about how a person might have somebody like a motherly figure in their life that they really respect and is important to them, and they really listen to, and they come to see their therapist through a very similar lens as they see that other motherly figure, and they again kind of put a lot on that and on that therapist that they would put on this other person in their life, and really listen to what they say and really value what they say. The flip side might be a situation where the therapist reminds the client of somebody that they had a bad experience with on a date. And, they may not even notice it at first, but as time goes on, they start to develop some sense of guardedness against the therapist and not realize like why they're not able to open up to them, why they even being around this individual is impacting them in a negative way. One of the things I really like about exploring countertransference is it's a reminder that therapists are human. They're just like the person that is in front of them. And like that person that they're working with, like that individual that has come to them for help, the therapist is also has baggage, has a history that can get in the way or support the work that they're doing with this individual. Something else that comes up a lot of times when exploring countertransference is just how easy it is to fall into non-therapeutic relationships with the people that we work with. So think about a situation where a person sitting across from a therapist reminds the therapist of a good friend of theirs, somebody that they would just connect with in general. They talk similarly, they share similar beliefs and attitudes about things in their world. And, it's easy to go past that professional veil, and dip into unprofessional, which, isn't a horrible thing. Like, again, we're human, we're people. Dipping into that unprofessional realm is also part of the therapeutic process, but you do need to be careful of that. I've heard situations where therapists really befriend the people that they're working with, and next thing you know, they're going to happy hour and sharing deep dark secrets and things like that. It's a lot more common than people realize. But if you think about how relationship based therapy is and how easy it can be to fall into that, I don't want to call it a trap, but just fall into that world where this is beyond a therapeutic experience, and go past that into friendship. It's something you always have to be checking, always have to be kind of considering, like, where is this going? What are these feelings about? Let's look at a couple different types of both transference and countertransference. First, romantic transference. This occurs when a client develops romantic feelings toward their therapist. Big surprise. Um, you know, Actually, a big surprise with therapy is a lot of lawsuits against therapists tend to be geared toward romantic relationships with their clients. It is never okay to have a romantic relationship with an active client. It may not seem like it at the time, but it can very much so hurt the individual that the therapist is working with, despite it feeling good. So you should always look to maintain the professional boundaries, of course, with your clients, and check yourself. Parental transference is another one. Exactly how it sounds. Clients project feelings onto the therapist, similar to how they might see a parent, which, as I talked about before, can and cannot work against the therapeutic experience. Couple examples of countertransference. First, grief countertransference. A therapist might experience grief countertransfer if a client experiences something that triggers the therapist unresolved grief. A lot of what you see with countertransference and I guess with transfers as well, but specifically when we look at countertransference, there are a lot of things that come up that the therapist ends up counter transferring onto the client that is just unresolved with them. So, again, a reminder that therapists need to do their own work when they're working with other people. I have a therapist. I've almost always had a therapist since I've been a therapist. And pretty much all my therapists that I've had have had therapists as well. You need to constantly do your own work. Another interesting countertransference is the overprotective countertransference. And this is where a therapist feels overly protective of the clients that they're working with, which ends up, it's just like maybe triggered by the client's vulnerability or the therapist's own past experiences. Okay, let's look at a mnemonic device to help you remember these concepts. So the word trace, TRACE. Transference recognition, acknowledge countertransference, engage professionally. Let me break that down a little bit for you. So, transference recognition, so that's when you recognize transference from the individual, and then acknowledge countertransference, acknowledge any countertransference that you're having, and then once you have those both, then you can engage professionally. Let me also give you a little visualization. Imagine yourself as a person working the ticket counter, the ticket counter. You're at a counter at a train station, and a client, walks up to you for a transfer pass. So you got your therapist with the counter transference and your client with the transference. Let's do some questions. What is transference in psychotherapy? A, the therapist's use of personal experiences to relate to the client. B, the client's redirection of feelings or significant others onto the therapist. C, the method by which therapists interpret the client's dreams. Or D, a technique used to enhance the client's self-esteem. All right, correct answer to this one is going to be B, the client's redirection of feelings for significant others onto the therapist. So transference occurs when clients project emotions, desire, and expectations from their personal relationships onto the therapist. This is a common phenomena in psychoanalytics and psychodynamic therapies, where understanding and resolving these projections can lead to breakthroughs in treatment. Question number 2. How can a therapist effectively manage countertransference? A, by undergoing personal therapy. B, by taking detailed notes during sessions. C, by providing advice based on personal opinions. D, by encouraging clients to handle their issues independently. All right, the correct answer to this one is going to be A, by undergoing personal therapy, as I was talking about before. So personal therapy for therapists is crucial in managing countertransference. It really helps a person understand and resolve their own emotional reactions and biases that may affect their professional judgment. This self-awareness allows therapists to maintain objectivity and effectiveness in treatment. Next question. What are implications of positive transference on therapy? Is it A, it can enhance therapeutic alliance but may also lead to dependency? B, it generally leads to termination of therapy? C, it decreases the client's motivation? Or D, it has no impact on the therapeutic outcome? The correct answer to this is A. It can enhance therapeutic alliance, but may also lead to dependency. Positive transference, where clients have overly idealized perceptions of their therapist, can strengthen the therapeutic relationship and facilitate engagement. However, it might also lead to unrealistic expectations and dependency, which can complicate the progression toward resolution. All right, that is going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. And I hope to start making these a little bit longer. I hope this works for everyone. and you continue to get as much out of this as you have with the smaller episodes that I did. I don't think I'll completely discontinue doing those little snippet episodes, but I do want to make these a little bit more robust. Please let me know if this is working for you or if it's not. I also would like to interview people that have taken the test or are going to take the test, just to get their thoughts. If you're interested in being interviewed for the episode, please reach out to me through the website, um, and hope to talk to you. But until next time, keep studying.